Welcome back again. This is Tech Up, your one-stop platform for all things in Africa. This segment is where we're going to spotlight startups in the communities around us in Nigeria and by extension Africa, people who are able to use technology to scale their businesses, thereby solving problems within their communities. And today's spotlight is going to be on no other person than Comfort Onyaga. She's the CEO of Izanu Africa, an agri-insure tech firm, the first of its kind in the country. We'll be asking her what made her start what she's doing right now and what her hopes. Hello, Comfort. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech Up. It's a pleasure having you.
Hi, Mercy. Thanks for having me
on
the show.
So what's your Izanu story?
Okay.
First of all, it doesn't sound Nigerian. Izanu sounds like...
Yeah, Izanu is Nigerian, actually.
Is it Nigerian?
Yeah, it is. So Izanu is a Nigerian word. That was my late grandmother's name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it means the one who embodies wisdom.
Oh, that's so awesome. So tell us about the story, Izanu Africa.
Okay, yes. So first of all, I have a non-profit because Izanu emerged from or evolved from the non-profit. So just before the pandemic, coincidentally, we had the non-profit was undergoing some sort of transition, I would say, in terms of the board constitution. So we were going to change the board members. And so at that point, because I needed board members who would be involved, and also hold me accountable. By the way, the nonprofit is Kleist Foundation, and the primary focus is livelihood, enhancing livelihood for people. So by this time, I had participated in the United States for USAID, United States Agency for International Development. They had their Global Food Security Stakeholders Forum, which I participated in. And I got to understand their strategy, which is private sector development approach. And then I began to hear buzzword like co-investment. Then I read their strategic framework, which is to put an end, one of their strategies to put an end to aid in Africa, I think by 2025.
To put an end to aid in Africa.
Yes.
So Africans don't have to
so
go
yeah,
for
it's
money.
it's our journey to self-reliance.
Wow.
So that for me, it got me thinking, and I began to ask myself, okay, so how do we become self-reliant? What's the private sector development approach about? I mean, we are a non-profit. If we are going to co-invest, it means we should have something to bring to the table beyond the ideas. So we had a board meeting October that year, 2019, so the new board was meeting in Nairobi, and the conversation came up in one of our agenda. How do we become self-reliant? How do we, as an organization, contribute to the journey to self-reliance? Coming from the Global Food Security Stakeholders Forum, which I had just participated in, it's a quarterly forum for stakeholders in the agricultural sector. So by the time we had that conversation, the decision was, okay, you know what, we need to set up something that can fund our activities even beyond relying on the donors. So by the time I came back to Nigeria, and fast forward 2020, the pandemic happened, and I was just at home thinking, okay, I was a bit confused, like, where do I go from here? How do we, I began to see a lot of tech, startups springing up here and there. And I asked myself, okay, so where do I go from, or where do we go as an organization from the traditional and conventional development to also, solving problems, leveraging digital technology, so that I don't get drifted in our focus, which is protecting the livelihood of people and addressing those challenges. So for us, since as an organization we had implemented several agricultural projects, right? So one of the things that came to mind was, okay, how can we leverage technology to solve the food problem, right? Remember, this is born out of my thinking at the Global Food Security Stakeholders Forum. So the pandemic happened, the whole conversation was going on, and sometime in August that year of the pandemic, I got into the Founder Institute, and from there, I began to, refine my ideas around possible solution we could explore. So in December 2020, Izanu was Izanu was registered.
Wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, so we had Izanu, but then the original idea wasn't even the Agri-tech-insurance. I mean, I'll go there. So the initial idea was, okay, aggregating land for farming, then farm management. You know, I mean, the bottom line was we want to contribute to securing food. We want to, you know, build a scalable business so that we don't remain where we are. We are able to scale our impact, right? But then impact-based business, even though we'll be making profit, unlike the non-profits. So at some point we had to pivot because even the initial idea, because it was new, like a blue ocean, right? It wasn't easy. There's a lot of ground lifting. I don't think Nigeria wasn't even ready for that.
At some point, I'm even going to ask you about your experience trying to, you know, do this first of its kind stuff in Africa. But Comfort, I'm going to ask you how tech comes into play here. I mean, so Agri-insure-tech, I really don't get it.
No, I'll come there. I'm going there. Yes. So I pivoted that last year. We even had paying clients. But it wasn't easy leveraging technology to do that because there are certain things that had to be in place for that to happen. Then fast forward August again. It's as if every August things happen around me. August I got into the Founder Institute. Then August 2021, I began to think.
Like a cycle.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So I began to think again, reflect and think, okay, you know what? It's time to think of other solutions. And by this time, we're already in the middle, even though it's a conversation that's been happening, in the middle of climate crisis. And then there's food security on the other hand. There's the livelihood of the people because climate is a threat to people's livelihood, regardless of the sector. So for us, I now began to carry out research around other possible solutions that we can still use to protect the livelihood of the people and secure food, because food security is at the center of all of this conversation, you know. And at that point, it became clear to me that, okay, you know what, why don't we go into the insurance sector? And we began to research, right? Myself, and by that time, I had a COO, I mean, a friend who reached out to me and is like, oh, Comfort, what about this and what's happening? I said, hey, yeah, we just pivoted and we are transitioning into the insurance space. Even though there are other Agri-insurance in other countries, we realized that there wasn't any Agri-insurance, an insurance company that is using technology to distribute solution to solve the problems within the agricultural sector, because it's sector specific. Yeah. Then we engaged with several stakeholders, carried out our research. It wasn't quite easy. It wasn't an easy one to crack because there's no model back home to replicate, to get some learnings from. But thankfully, around March 2022, a friend forwarded a link to an accelerator program, for insurance, for the insurance sector, which Bima Lab. So the Bima Lab is an initiative of FSD Africa and NICOM. NICOM is Nigerian Insurance Commission, the regulatory body for the insurance industries, right? So I got into the program, and several others, we were 10. They selected 10 InsurTech, right? So I figured that of all the insurance, we have people who are doing things in the insurance industry with leveraging technology, but for agri specifically, right, we were the only one. And then I researched further and I figured like, oh wow, in Nigeria, there was no other. So,
that's a good one.
So we are the first. Yeah, so we are the first, right? And so the Bima Lab also, gave us that hand holding, just like the Founder Institute did. So for me, the Founder Institute was that journey to understanding the startup ecosystem and taking off the cap of a non-profit, because non-profit, it's almost like you're advocating, and you want to do charitable work, sort of, you know, even though our approach then was market driven for the non-profit. But in this case, I had to put on the cap of a pure entrepreneur, even though impact driven, to understand the dynamics around the business environment and the sector.
What a story. What a story. I mean,
yeah,
so
I think so for us, yeah, the NICOM FSD Africa BIMA Lab program actually bettered us. Like it's like the midwife, right, that brought our InsurTech to life, because I mean, with their support, bringing in experts in the industry, a lot of things became clear, and now we are in the market.
In fact, Comfort, earlier when we were speaking, you mentioned issue about climate change, and I know how much of a threat climate change is to the agri sector.
Okay, so if you go to our website, Izanu.Africa, www.izanu.Africa, you would see that we distribute inclusive and climate resilient, you know, warranties. So, I mean, so we are the warranty for farmers. You know how you get a gadget and there is a warranty cover. If you're going to buy a gadget, for instance, if there is no warranty, you would likely not go for that. You go for, but for us, so we look at the issues across different segments of the agricultural value chain, and we're able to disintegrate the different problems. I mean, categorizing them, and these insurance solutions, right, are, you know, tailored to absorb or accommodate this problem. So for climate change, they are climate or index, what we call index-based or, you know, parametric policy. So let me talk about climate change now. So I mean, it's not new. It's not just a buzzword.
We are feeling the effects already
here in Nigeria. We are feeling it, not just Nigeria only, even the developed countries. So everybody, climate change, like hunger, it's not irrespective of any man. Like, it affects everyone regardless of your social status, right, in the society. But now narrowing down to the farmers, you know, there's a lot of dynamics around climate change, and a lot of people are not aware. Let me tell you, you know, the crisis, the conflict in the north, for instance, is a product of climate change. People are not even able to link it, right? So now it is either there is excess rain or there is drought, right? So meaning, I mean, whether the farmers know it or not, it is what it is. It is climate change. It affects them. So implying that if a farmer is expected to go to the farm to cultivate their crop in February and there is delay in rainfall, right? Because, I mean, farming in Nigeria is rain-fed, not irrigated, right? So we rely on rainfall. So it means that the farmer will not plant in January following the usual cycle. The farmer would have to wait until they see the rain, and they cannot afford irrigation right now, you know. So that is climate change. If there is excess rainfall, if the rain is beyond normal, it's going to affect them. There will be flood. That is the impact of climate change. So implying, even the commercial farmers, so a lot of people think it's only smallholder farmers that are affected by this. Even the commercial farmers, a lot of commercial farmers today rely on financial institutions for loans, you know, to be able to access funds to scale their farming operations. And guess what? They also work with people in the communities. Sometimes the smallholder farmers, they act like anchors, they work in the farm. Do you know that if there is flood, for instance, and someone has 500 hectares of farmland, that person will be affected as much as the guy who owns just 1 hectare of farmland, you know, is affected as a result of that flood. I'll do the analysis. Mr. A is a commercial farmer, goes to a financial institution, takes a loan to go invest in farming, so they will cultivate and, you know, sell their food or either export or locally, you know. At the end of that production cycle, if there is excess flood or delay in rainfall, guess what? The crop would not do well. There will be crop failure, right? So it means for that production cycle, it's a minus for them. Imagine if that farmer took a loan, how would that person repay that loan? I mean, the commercial farmer's livelihood has been affected because he's not able to pay as much as even the workers, people working with them. He's not able to pay back the workers. He's not able to pay back the loan. It's going to affect the farmer's mental health as much as even that of the workers, right? And then that's minus for food that would have been in place for Nigerians or elsewhere, you know,
I mean,
to consume.
It's such a cycle.
Absolutely.
And it affects everybody.
It has a ripple effect. Even the
well.
consumer. So that's why there is inflation. Food is very expensive. Why? Because people who suffer the impact of climate change are not able to recover. So for instance, this is where insurance comes in, right? So it's not that insurance is going to stop those events from happening. So imagine that particular farmer. How would that farmer go back to replant for the next production cycle when there's huge losses incurred, right, in the previous farming cycle? So if there was insurance cover for that, depending on the type of insurance policy the farmers get, if it is comprehensive, which is hybrid, or index-based, or, you know, I mean, so what then happens is that the farmers will get payouts to compensate for that loss. So it's a shock absorber. Insurance is a shock absorber. So I realized farmers plan, they get other input like fertilizer, chemical, and all of that to protect their crop, but they do not see insurance as a crop protection input.
I mean,
so that's where we are getting to with
this is
insurance.
absolutely beautiful, and it's a beautiful conversation. But this is where we have to put, you know, colleagues perhaps on the conversation. Thank you so much, Comfort.
Thanks for having
Comfort
me.
Onyaga, CEO, Izanu Africa.
Yeah.
You know, the first of its kind in Nigeria for doing.
Yeah,
what
we are
you
the
do.
first Nigerian Agri-tech-insurance.
Yes, we wish you all the best.
Thank you
really.
very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go for a short break, and when we come back, there is more.
On Tech Hub, we help you understand how tech can impact your life.
Your phone and your SIM card is going to be a bigger asset.
With the power that we have with social media, with the digital space right now, you can be anything you want to